Welcome again, Pastor Brown. Thank you for viewing into our show today on the Mound with Pastor Brown. I am extremely excited today to bring this broadcast to you. We have in-house Sacramento's very own Greg Vaughn visiting with us today. We're certainly super excited about him being here today. And I mean, four-time All-Star, Silver Slugger. I mean, can I go on and on? 355 home runs right here in Sacramento, California. The interesting thing, and before I bring Greg into this, is that I'm a big fan of Greg. Not only in that, Greg and I actually went to school together many years ago at Sac City Junior College. And so for me, this is somewhat of a full circle, meaning here I am as a pastor and what have you, being able to interview someone that is walking with the Christ, but more importantly, is not afraid to use his celebrity platform to add value and influence and change communities that he has the ability to reach. And so without further ado, Greg, thank you for being on the show today on the Mound with Pastor Brown.
Hey, KB, it's always a pleasure. Like I said, I think our friendship is special. Not only are you, I have much respect for you for, being a former Major League Baseball player, but also being a man of God, and being a pastor. And like I said, we go back 30 plus years. And if God can change you, I know he can change anybody. You know what I mean?
Right. That was always the thing, though, right?
It is, and that's what keeps me plugging, because, I have people in my life, or former people in my life, that would say, you're a Christian, so you can't make mistakes. And I say, I'm a Christian, so I can make mistakes and be forgiven, and, try to turn my life around. Everyone says if you are a Christian, you have to act and be a certain way. There's only one person that's perfect, you know what I mean? And he's not down here with us. And so for me, to be able to be here, and like I said, us going to school together, us being homies and partners, and like I said, a lot of good and a lot of not so good, you know what I mean? But
we thought it was good.
Yeah, it was a good time. But
right.
you know what I mean? It's, as we mature, I think, putting life in perspective, with God first, and, and you, and I love your family, and family, and you helped me through difficult times going through, my divorce, and you said, time will heal, and, I looked at things through the eyes of the Lord instead of my eyes, and I never really said thank you, but, I really do appreciate you for that, because, me and my 3 kids, are good, my grandson's good, and you told me it was going to be all right, you know what I mean? And at the time going through that trial, I didn't think so, but between you and, Pastor Bob, and, all the people in my life that have stood by me, because, I'm still a work in progress, every day I wake up, I have my demons and my battles that I have to go through, and I just learned to separate myself from the judgmental type people, you know what I mean? And because then I feel like I had something to prove. Being an athlete, we have a tendency to think that ever since yay big, that we had to be at a certain place at a certain time. We were always in control of ourselves and what we were trying to accomplish. And I really never gave thanks unless it was a bad timing. Right. I was going through some type of trial. And, with that being said, like I said, every day, man, my tongue, and, if I don't start off with my daily devotional and getting the word, stuff comes out of my mouth that I'm not proud of, but my circle is a lot smaller now. I have people around me that hold me accountable.
But on that part, Greg, I'm glad you mentioned accountability. And let me say this before that. It was an honor for Cindy and myself to come over and just to be, invited to help you, Greg, because, at the end of the day, I suppose, with all the years of experience that we've had with one another, and the ups and downs and ins and outs, and, I think a lot of times, you know, at that season in life, it was an honor for us that you would invite us into such an intimate, delicate situation, and to be able just to be there for you, you know, because I think, you know, when I look at the breadth of our relationship, you know, we've had some moments to where, you know, I probably acted like a jerk and what have you. And so, I apologize for that because, you know, I suppose when you look at it, you know, that's why I sent you that text that one day. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, because at the end of the day, G, I mean, you and I have been there. You know me, right? And I mean, you talk about our life coming up through the college, through, you know, I remember when I got traded to the Brewers, and all my guys from SAC, I'm thinking, oh man, we're gonna turn up. And so you've seen me in the other light, and I appreciate the fact that you respected the fact that, you know, my life had changed, and you watched me. You know what I mean? And if God could change somebody like me, right, then, you know, my goodness, there's hope for everybody, right?
Amen. And like I said, for me, you know, Kev, I'm still a work in progress because, you know, I'll share some things. You know, for me, becoming a Christian, I thought I couldn't have fun anymore. You know what I mean? And, you know, like from Phil Elch to Tarl to Bob Valiant, from, you know, Gus and Pastor Efren, you know, and, you know, at Midtown, you know, I grew up with Bob, and he was one of my best friends growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I remember it's like a little running joke. I remember he was in Milwaukee. I don't know if you were there at that time or not. I don't know if you got traded, but I think you probably were there. But Bob, you know, Town and Country Construction, doing well. And 3 days later, after he left me, he says, "Hey, man, I'm gonna be a pastor. I'm gonna sell the company." And I was like, "Man, did I play that bad?"
Right.
You know, and no, the Lord called on him, and, you know, he followed his heart, and he followed the Lord, you know.
Yeah.
And I think he followed the Lord first and then his heart, you know. And at the time, I really didn't understand it. I didn't understand what he was going through. But he said something to me during my career that I'll never forget, because I remember I went to chapel every Sunday. I portrayed to be a Christian. I portrayed to do the right thing. And it was all fraud, you know what I mean? Because I wasn't living as a Christian. And so until I started getting into men's groups and small groups, I didn't understand that. But Bob told me the one time, he said, "Hey, he's going to get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to go before he does." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I'm in the big leagues. I'm the highest paid on my team.
Right.
You know, they got a whole section named after me.
Vaughn's Valley.
Vaughn's Valley, you know, the name of my foundation. And okay, Bob, I mean, it worked for you. But I think the biggest thing for me was being a hypocrite. And I tell my kids this all the time. And I even told my ex, you know, because like I said, I think people put that quote unquote stigma on us that because we're Christians, we don't make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. But I was one of those people. I didn't want to have one foot in the church and then have one foot in the club.
Yeah.
So until I hit rock bottom, which was going through my divorce and seeing the pain and the hurt that I caused on my ex-wife and my 3 kids, was I able to really understand what he was talking about. Because those same people that were running with me and hanging with me weren't there. Yeah. And the Lord was telling me I had to let some people go. Yeah. And you were telling me I had to let some folks go. And I did that. But like I said, Kim, man, I make mistakes all day long. My tongue gets me in trouble. My heart gets me in trouble. You know, at this moment, if there's anybody out there that's watching this, if I hurt you or did you wrong, you know, I truly am sorry. It wasn't coming from an evil place, it was coming from a selfish place. So I want to say, you know, I'm sorry to anybody that I hurt, offended, and you know, I'm a work in progress every single day. And you know, it's a challenge, you know, because us as humans and us as athletes, like I said, you know, we're used to being in control. until we can surrender, submit, and truly let go,
Yeah.
we will never find happiness, and I'm still in the middle of that submitting and letting go because, my kids are older now and I try to tell them the same thing. And I remember I can't blame them, but I hope they come on their own opposed to something tragic, getting their attention.
Well, the thing, one of the reasons that God gave us birth of Journey Ministries, Greg, is to speak to the point of debunking the myth that Christians are perfect and that they don't make mistakes. And the only perfect individual, as you mentioned, is Jesus Christ. And as a result, when we do come to Christ, we start this new life. But I learned, Greg, that my old operating system was still my place of normalcy. And even though I had been born again and filled with the Holy Spirit with this new operating system, I wanted to revert back to what was most familiar to me. Even as an athlete, everybody gives us everything. And as a result, growing up, whether it be in Little League, Kennedy High School, we're the big fish on campus, and so all the laurel and all the applause, we start to play to that. It feels good. And so when you start talking about, giving my life over and turning it over to someone I can't see and yada, 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 I mean, it has to be very difficult, especially when, trying to live a Christian life in professional sports, right? With all the entourage, with all the trimmings and all the temptation. I mean, you think about, I remember when you signed your 4-year, $32 million in Tampa, right? It was like, oh yeah, big Hank, right? I mean, you start thinking about having disposable income and all these various things that also can be a blessing, but also can further entrap us, right? Think about King Solomon. He had all the money and all the things, but he still didn't have peace, still didn't have joy as he was actively searching for that place of bliss. And so, we certainly agree with you as it relates to the sanctification process or being a work. We are God's masterpiece. Last Sunday, I talked about a word and where we derived the word poem. And that came from our sermon on last week, but ultimately, when we start talking about Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, it talks about us being God's handiwork, his masterpiece. When you do a word study, it says that word derives from the word poem. He is writing a beautiful poem in your life. And so to be able, with the freedom to speak into the camera, speak into the virtual cyberspace, to tell anyone that, listen, I'm sorry, right? That is growth, that's maturation, right? Because it is difficult for anyone to acknowledge that we wronged or done anything to offend someone, right? Especially when you think about the fact, Greg, that for the vast majority, 15 years at the major league level, right? You got, all kind of accolades. You got the University of Miami, all these things, the Sac City. I mean, your home, and everyone, like you said, is sprinkling and whispering things that we want to hear, but now you have a group of friends that are holding you accountable, right? To live out what we say that we live. I did the chapel thing. I only did chapel when I was in a slump, right? Or I called my mother and say, hey, Mom, I need you to pray for me, right? But we was going back to business as usual.
Yeah, I remember a lot of times, and it goes back to the way I was raised. My grandmother, probably on another part of this piece that we'll hit on later, is we got to do things different. What's going on in America right now. My grandmother told me, you can't be the same. So as you being one of the few pictures of color, you could not slip. And I would always stay on you. Cat, no. Yeah. You're pitching them all, this is what it has to be. But you're a grown man. You had to go through what you had to go through. And maybe that wasn't God's plan to have you be and stay in the major leagues for a long time, even though you made it and you were successful. This was your calling. We couldn't see that. You know what I mean? Right. And for me, like I said, man, the biggest thing for me is to be a hypocrite. I deal with kids every day, I started the program at Bradshaw Christian. Kids come to my house and hit, and being a role model is important. But man, if I sat here and gave my testimony and told you all the things that I've done this year, people would pass judgment on me. But I learned I'm not living for people anymore.
Right.
And I had to come to terms with that perception and what I have.
But we live for them all the time, though, right? Think about our sport, right? The newspaper, the Kenny Maynes, the Dan Patricks, right? We play to the crowd.
We play to the crowd, but I think, Kev, if you took the vast majority of athletes, I think they played because they loved it, and they played because of pride. I think all the other stuff came with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? The fame, the fortune. I'm just so glad I didn't play when all the social media stuff was going on, because, being a special assistant sometimes and walking in clubhouses, the guys are gone. I remember we'd be in the clubhouse until, and I can say this back then because it was a while ago,
Right.
All the beer was gone because all the veterans and older guys were still teaching us.
Yeah.
Now when you walk in the clubhouse before the game, they don't talk. When you come after the game, I promise you get down the escalator, the stairs sometimes, dude, 10 minutes after the game, they're gone. They're taking food to go. They don't talk. I don't even know if they use soap or shower. You know what I mean? It's in, out, and I love my job.
Yeah.
I love playing baseball. I love my locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And to go back a little bit further, you've known me for a long time. I still have my little league and high school as my surrounding group.
Right.
But I also, it's the ones that did hold me accountable for a long time. Maybe I didn't listen, but they did hold me accountable. But I once again, I had to add, whether it's Taro, whether it's Phil Oates, whether it's, like I said, Pastor Ephraim, whether it's Monte, it's whether it's Bird, it's so many people that play a role in my village now. Yeah. But being single again after being divorced and getting out there, I struggled. I reverted back to the old Greg. And once again, like I said, if I misled or did anything wrong, I'm truly sorry. Mm-hmm. And that's coming from the bottom of my heart. And I think, for me, being a hypocrite is my biggest self-inner demon, because I would love to do everything right. I would love to say everything right. I would love for everything to come out of my mouth to be as if Jesus was saying it himself, as scripture says, and I'm telling you, man, this is 10 times harder than baseball. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because people look up to you, and you went back to the monetary part of say, playing for that. But I tell people all the time, ever since I was a little kid, as soon as you hit that checkout line in the grocery store, them tabloids are filled with people with monetary stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're not happy. Yeah. Money does not bring happy, but money's not evil either. No. It's people. Yeah. It's people, that are evil. And like I said, man, for me to look back 6 years ago where I was at, and you were there with me, you're sitting there going through it with me, and make a break. No, you can't leave. You got to sit down. Going to counselors and doing different things, and I'm wanting to hold someone else accountable, which I don't have the right to do. Right. I don't have the right to hold anybody else accountable. I can only be accountable for myself, and I try to do the best I can. And I'm sorry. Please forgive me, and get it off me, and ask the Lord to protect and come over our kids so they would be okay, because they went through it. I was the bad guy. I was the villain. Yeah. Here's Dad that was there all the time, was perceived as the villain. And, hate came in, and my mom came and said, you're living in spite. She's controlling you. I'm like, wait, she's not controlling me. I have nothing to say.
Right.
No. Look how you're talking. Look how you're reacting. And try to live, not to learn in spite, live in spite, and submit and turn stuff over.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't truly come to peace. And I'm still dealing with it to this day,
Yeah.
Through different relationships, because there's a lot of, the world is crazy, man. It's and I truly don't understand it. Even the stuff we're going through now.
Greg, with regard to, I think about when December 1994, I was in a very dark, hot spot in life. And I remember my grandmother told me, she said, son, if you ever need help, all you got to do is call on Jesus. And so I remember, calling on Jesus and believing him to rescue me, which he did. Went back into baseball in 95 and got to the hotel. And I'm sitting there, reading the Bible. And all of a sudden, I got this overwhelming feeling to call some of the young ladies that I was dating to tell them that, about each other and to come clean, right? And I'm like, God, what you talking about? I'm not getting that card exposed. I said, if you want me to do it, make the phone ring. Hotel phone ring. And I never shall forget how difficult that was, but how liberating. And so I say that to say this. In the book of Psalms, number 32, David was in a very unique spot. And he was restless internally, and it was just eating him up. And he says, I was sweating day and night. I'm restless. He says, it wasn't until I confessed that God released me. And so to your point of the apology to those that you may have offended or whatever, know this, that according to the book of Romans chapter 10, therefore there is no condemnation to them that are in Christ Jesus. And your heavenly Father is the one that has forgiven you. And that is a gift that sometimes people, because of their pain, aren't able to receive. You can't make them accept the gift, but all you can do is extend that gift to them.
Yeah, and you told me that going through it, and Pastor Bob, and Gus Armstead, like the small man, Brian Garcia. There was so many people that truly played a part in that and making me understand, because that's the only part I could give, was what they did with it. It was up to them.
Yeah.
And I'll say something, because I'll go back to, some of the plans that I read, Dr. Martin Luther King's daughter, she, going through the civil rights movement, and, seeing her father and her friends and her uncles and everybody going through it, and seeing people die and get killed, and what happened to her father. And I remember what Miss King said to her one time, because you had people of non-color still coming by the house and extending their arm, and because she was, with all the tension, she still wasn't ready for that. You know what I mean? And her mom said, Miss King said, for you to move on and for you to progress into what the Lord has for you and for what your father was fighting for, you have to let go of this hate so something good can come in.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're at right now. We have people with so much hate. But like I said, Kev, I can't tell anybody else how to feel, because I find myself getting angry still.
Yeah.
At what's going on right now. In 2020, I never thought we'd be going through this again.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I have to check myself. I have to not get intertwined and intertangled in too much of it, because it brings out the old Greg. And even going, like you were talking about, girls you're dating and girls you were seeing, they know how to push your buttons and what to say, but I'm not responsible for what they say. I'm responsible for how I respond.
Yeah.
And it's not always right. You know what I mean?
You mentioned what's going on in society today from a cultural imbalance, something that we've always known. As you mentioned, I was 91. I was one of, I think it was only 25 of us at the major league level. They did that Ebony 1991 February issue that had all the African American players.
I think we had a little bit more than that because each team back then
Right.
at least had 4 or 5, 6,
4 or 5,
4 or 5 or 6.
Right.
But it was such a blessing because when I could go to Reggie Jackson or Ricky Henderson or Dave Stewart or Glenn Braggs or Mike Felder or Dave Winfield, Kirby Puckett,
Big Park,
Parkway, Chili Davis. And when I can go to somebody that's been through what I was going through or that grew up in similar circumstances, and
right.
because for a long time it was Greg Vaughn, the baseball player, trying to portray, I came from this perfect place. Mm-hmm. And not till I realized that, talking to whether it was Mr. Jackson or Mr. Winfield, or Puck, or, Glenn Braggs or Mike Felder, that I realized that as I got older, I realized I didn't have to be perfect. Yeah. And so that helped me and freed me to be who I was.
Yeah. You mentioned those guys that, number one, as you mentioned, in Major League Baseball today, there's no camaraderie, meaning in the clubhouse, we used to have our spread, we used to have the adult beverages, we used to gamble, we stayed there, through BP sometimes, rain delays, but we were more relational opposed to being transactional. And you mentioned how those older players were able to come and support you in a sense, or you had the ability to reach out to those players for some guidance, right? Yes. To give you the ropes. And I remember, Greg, vividly, you telling me when I got traded over from the Mets, I was already a hot mess before I was a hot mess in SAC, but when I left, Doc and Strong to come over to Milwaukee, I was out of control. And as a starting pitcher, I obviously work once a week and was supposed to train and discipline myself. The other days that I lacked the discipline. And here Greg is trying to tell me, right, hey, you can't do the things that other people do. Which leads me to the conversation of systemic racism in Major League Baseball, right? And your experiences, to that point, because I think it's important when you look at society from a standpoint, Greg. When we look at society today, we say, man, our system is broken. No, the system is designed and was designed for us and not for us. Meaning, when the Constitution was established, all of the ancillary supports and capabilities, meaning the education system, the finance system, the government system, they were designed to produce and protect the white majority's personal interests. And so when we look at the disparities and we look at what I call the dross of society today, poverty, homelessness, sex trafficking, unarmed black man getting killed. Again, the justice system wasn't designed for us. But the point of emphasis is that it is producing exactly what it was designed to produce. And so now we see yet another individual, right? George Floyd on broad daylight on camera get killed. And, we have seen this and it has become so normal to us. And we say, well, that's just another one. All he had to do something wrong. Well, no, other than being his color. What about respecting an individual for just being a human, right? Just being, not being guarded because I'm a person of color, or a person of color not feeling that I have to act and speak more properly because, I don't want people to perceive me as being ghetto and on all these things. I mean, I think about some of the media preps that they used to have to do for us, right, for interviews so that we could, speak fluently and look intelligent and things of this nature, right? And I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm looking at it in the standpoint of, from a societal standpoint, we are exactly where the system has led us. It is producing exactly what it was intended to produce. And now that it's on Main Street throughout this COVID experience, we see it not only in our justice system, but more importantly, we actually see it in sports. And I want to ask you, right, about baseball. I mean, you think about the litany of ball players that you have played with, persons of color that had equal or the same amount of skill set as a person that didn't look like them, but yet the person of color, for whatever reason, never made the major league roster. I mean, do you see a duality? Do you see a double standard going on in Major League Baseball?
Well, Kevin, let's do this. I think it was a conversation we had growing up.
Yeah.
So it didn't have to get to Major League Baseball for us in our generation to know that we had to be different, we had to be special, we couldn't do certain things, we weren't allowed to say certain things. So I think we were a little bit more prepared at home, than I would say, which it's a pleasure to say, I think there's more African American fathers at home now, starting to be at home. There was a gap, a huge gap for, I think, the late 80s, maybe the 90s through the early 2000s, where the father was absent. But we had a lot of strong black women that were running the household that prepared us. And I think the first time I experienced actual racism in sports was at 11 years old playing for the South Sac Jets, which then, of course, we get rid of those leagues, the police athletic league, where the officers were around us, and all the great boxers, that came out of Sacramento, Diego, Tony Gonzalez, all the great boxers, we had the Sacramento Police Athletic League.
Mm-hmm.
So the police were in there and they were with us, and I think, I was prepared at an early age because playing Pop Warner football at 11 years old, and my cousin Ricky, who that played in the NFL, Ricky Reynolds, my mom's brother's son, I rushed for like 200, run a kickoff back, caught a screen pass for a touchdown, and they gave co-MVP to the Carmichael guy and myself.
Right.
And I was like, wow, you know what I mean? And afterwards, back then, my grandma's like, well, boy, pick your lip off the ground,
Mm-hmm.
It's time to eat, And I said, Grandma, it's not fair, this is BS, and blah, blah, blah. She says, man, first of all, life's not fair, and you made it too close.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand what she was talking about, and if my kids ever see this, I know they're gonna roll their eyes because this is something I always said. My grandmother not only was, of course, a female, but and a person of color to work at the Army Depot. Not only did she have people of non-color disliking her, she had men of color that she surpassed.
Mm-hmm.
So she didn't want to hear anything about fair.
Right.
She said, Greg, I'm gonna tell you this, son. Do not make it close. Whether it's school, whether it's cutting the yard, whether it's being a father, whether it's being a student, whether it's being a big brother to your three siblings, do not make it close. And she always taught me this too, which I try to tell these young men, that first impression is big. So sometimes you're gonna only get one shot to see someone and try to impress someone. And if you walk in there with your pants around your ankles and don't give a good first impression, you're probably not gonna be the one to be called upon.
Right.
And unfortunately, like I said, it's not giving in or surrendering yourself to another culture. It's proving them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She always taught me to prove them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And our people, a lot of us say, oh, you make it because You must be a sellout, or you must be this and that. No, I did not want to hurt my mother.
Right.
I did not want to hurt my family. I did not want to hurt my community. I did not want to disappoint people who played a big part, whether it was Miss Thompson, who was the principal at John Sloat, or it was Coach Rucker, or it was my stepfather, or it was, like my Uncle Henry, or, Mr. Griffin, Airport Little League.
Right.
Blackwell's, the Blackwells, Old Park Little League, Willow Rancho, Lavelle Freeman growing up, it wasn't until I seen the guys that I idolized get sent back home, whether it was from college or professional ball, that I said, dang, if they can send them home,
Mm-hmm.
I have to do something different.
Yeah.
So.
You mentioned Lavelle, back-to-back batting titles. Couldn't get a roster, Major League Baseball spot.
You know what? I talked about the top 5, top 10 hitters I've ever seen in my life. Big leagues. Anyway, Lavelle Freeman is in that conversation.
Yeah.
He's in that conversation, and unfortunately, we don't get the same opportunities. I mean, once again, you go back to the racism part. Greg Jeffries was a great player, but to hit 398
right.
with 25 and 100 and something, he probably would have been on the cover of Wheaties if he wasn't African American, at that time. He gets co-MVP. I won, I think, Baseball America Player of the Year my 2 years in the minor leagues, and I had to do that and have 27 home runs to get called up in July, and I was the only 30-30 guy my 2 years in the minor leagues.
Yeah, I remember that. Who was the first baseman that you were battling? He was with the Cardinals.
Todd Zeal.
Todd Zeal. I remember Todd.
Yeah, me and Todd are good friends, and it was nothing personal against Todd.
Yeah.
Because we both would have been at UCLA at the same time, but I chose University of Miami.
The U.
And it was different, man, because I remember going back to, I knew I could not be the same.
Yeah.
I knew I had to do it different. But back then, it was called constructive criticism, and we were prepared at home for the world. Now, we're having babies at such early ages, and like you said, the differences between an African American education and a non-African American education is different. There's a lot of people that since all this stuff has came up, that I thought were my friends and girls that I've dated, and to hear some of the stuff come out of their mouth, even with the Kaepernick thing, I said from the beginning, it's a distraction because they don't want to talk about what's really going on. And everyone says the military is the wrong place, the wrong time, the wrong, it's the flag. You don't disrespect. He never disrespected the flag.
No.
He has military people in his family. My stepdad is a military man. My grandfather's a military people. I have military people throughout my family. They were tired of having a young 4-year-old in the back of a car and getting pulled over by a policeman and not doing anything wrong and have her daddy get his head shot up, blown out,
Right.
and people saying it's okay.
Right.
Or we go to North Carolina and the kid kills 38 kids and they surround him and take him to Burger King because he's
Right.
hungry, and we get choked out for selling CDs or cigarettes at BART or a fake $20 bill. Okay, because I hear the conversations and people are saying, well, he was a criminal, he was this. That doesn't make him deserve to die.
Correct.
Because all of us have done things that aren't right, but that doesn't mean we should die.
Correct.
We see the same thing in sports. Let's go to Stanford. The kid on the lacrosse or
I saw he raped those girls.
Raped a girl, swimming team, raped a girl who was unconscious, and while they're getting ready to prepare for trial, the kid's at home because he's getting lambasted throughout the media and the press. The judge says, I don't want to ruin his life.
Mm-hmm.
And we can take it a step farther, growing up in South Sac, Meadowview, and, seeing my friends and family members for selling marijuana get 5, 10, 15 years for having 3 or 4 joints.
Right.
And it's never been a problem. I'll say crack or liquor stores they allow in our neighborhoods
Mm-hmm.
to keep us suppressed and keep us down. But it's not a problem until the opioids come out, and now we need a budget and reform to have a $500 million budget so their kids and their wives and their nieces and their nephews can get some help. But how come they didn't help us?
Right.
When that flag and stars are put on that flag, there are people just like me, you, and all these, a lot of people, they died for us to be able to have equality
Yeah.
and justice, and that's the part that people are forgetting. That's why Kaepernick took a knee.
Yeah.
That's what he took a knee for. Justice, equality. He did not take it because he hates police. He did not take it because he hates the military. It was for equality and justice for all those people that sacrificed their lives for that flag, the freedom of speech, the freedom of protest in a nonviolent way. He gets banned.
He gets banned for doing what's right.
But if you remember, when we were coming up, we were told by our peers, not the organization, but we were fortunate enough to play with other African American players or have coaches. But back then we had 4, 5, 6 on the team, what to do and what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a blink of an eye, if you did something wrong, you were gone.
Gone.
Or you would never get the opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's what that flag stood for: equality, opportunity, for justice.
Yeah.
Chief Hahn, a great friend of mine, African American. You think Chief Hahn likes what's happening?
Absolutely.
Chief Hahn is fighting for it. But and we have a lot of conversations, not just Chief Hahn, but Mayor Steinberg. It's a lot of people that we talk to, and they say, Greg, what do you think the difference is? I think the difference is, you know how many white or Caucasian people played a big role in my life? I can't count them. But they were people, if that's such a word.
Mm-hmm. No, think about it. I grew up in Orville. It took me in. Right?
Yeah.
My best friends don't look like me.
No, they don't. The people you grew up don't look like you, but you were still fortunate enough to be treated as a person.
Correct.
And for them to instill values and not judge you based on the color of your skin. I remember, like I said, man, we all done stuff.
But do you think, Greg, let me ask you this, do you think that because of your celebrity, that you were put over in this spot, that you're a safe colored person? The other ones are a little different. You're different. Right? You understand what I'm saying?
No, yeah, because I made it, I was accepted. I wouldn't say different. I was accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been profiled. Placer County, man, whoa. You know what I mean?
Right.
You go to Tahoe and just driving home, and there's 5 cars ahead of me, 5 cars behind me. I pass with the 5 in front.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my car, I get pulled over.
Yeah.
It's because I'm not supposed to have nice things or be educated or own businesses because the color of my skin.
Right. You have to be a drug dealer.
I have to be a drug dealer and even being an athlete. And then, that's why I'm so happy that these guys are taking controls of their career and they're making their own brand.
Yeah.
Like the Macro Teen Center, Community Center, going over there, and then these guys are saying, I want to be a clothing designer, I want to do this, and I want to make, no, you want to own your business.
Correct.
So educate yourself so you're able to own your business. And us as African Americans or any people of color, we have to do a better job supporting our neighborhoods and our businesses and our people. And we cannot not value our lives.
Yeah. Do you think that, Greg, on that level, you talk about, every ethnic group celebrates some day. You got the Italians, they celebrate their national day. You have the Hispanics down there, Cinco de Mayo, Miller Park, things of this nature.
In Mexico, they don't celebrate.
Oh, no.
No. It's an American holiday.
American holiday.
Yeah.
But even when you have Black History Month, yada, 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 but what I'm trying to get to is it's okay to have pride in your heritage, but many people that look like us, Greg, number one, the history hasn't been written about our heritage. Number two, because of lack of wisdom, people perish. And you look at we talk about the armed forces, the police system killing unarmed black men, but two other elements of black on black crime. One is how other black people cast shade on other black people, successful black people. We always want to put a asterisk by anything that you've accomplished.
Right. Chief Vaughn talked about that all the time. Right. We must not be black because we made it. You know what
right,
I mean?
Right.
You know, or because of the way we dress.
I do like them. I don't wear Gucci, but them one Gucci tennis shoes I saw you had on, I would wear them.
Yeah, you know what? It's
I'm putting my bid in that 13.
But you know, Kev, it's so much deeper than that. I think we have to start building each other up and having respect for our race and proud to be African American.
Right.
And I think we have a problem because, like I said, the father was absent for so long
mm-hmm.
that we lost that. And until I started mentoring and getting out there and trying to talk to these kids and trying to help them, I said, there's no way. You should be able to, just like that, flip it, I'm stopping the cycle. No, but when it's been ingrained, and your family member after family member after family member, and your father's incarcerated, and your brothers and your uncles and everybody else, or they're on welfare, or some type of assistance and all this other stuff, who's to help them and guide them and give them the means to excel?
Yeah.
They already have low self-esteem with low self-expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we still can't quit on them. We have to try to find a way to make them feel important, to make them feel that there are choices.
Right.
And when I go to men are at school, whether it's at Rio Linda or you just pick a school, and everybody comes in there, it's mostly guys, and they got backpacks. They're at school.
Mm-hmm.
They got a .08 or 188,
right.
and they're at school in a backpack, and they're this, and I'm like, you guys don't love anybody. Oh man, you crazy. I love my mama, I love my grandma. No, you didn't. If you didn't, you wouldn't have a .08
right.
or a 188.
Walking around in $500 tennis shoes, Yeezys and Jeezys or whatever you call them, right?
But like I said, we need to start owning our stuff. We need to start being accountable. We need to hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
We need to, instead of knocking each other down, and once again, I'm sorry because I know through relationships I have said things and put people down that I'm truly sorry for. We need to start building one another up.
Yeah.
And we need to start mentoring and taking them along and showing them how to do things. The big brother, big sister programs when we were coming up.
Mm-hmm.
The police athletically, like I said, I had so many people of non-color, the Matiscos at Kennedy, Paul Carmazzi. Jerry Weinstein.
J-Dub.
There's so many people that were part of my village that I could have my own subdivision. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they're all going to look different.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to get back to building each other up.
Yeah.
But once again, it comes back to this. Unfortunately, when we talk about with Chief Vaughn and the rest of the police reform, we have to be able to have people that can communicate with us. Instead of every time something goes wrong or going out to look for a battle.
Yeah.
I remember being at University of Miami and going over to a couple of buddies' house, while we played them. And I'm not going to mention the school, I'm not going to mention the state, but I knew life was different in the South.
Yeah.
I knew it was different. I have a lot of my friends, whether it's Gary Sheffield, one of my best friends, and one of your best friends, a lot of different people. They had two girls in the room, and we were all just hanging out laughing. And she accidentally slipped, and when she was asking for the remote, she said, "Throw me the end," because it did everything for you. I said, before I say something or end up someplace I don't want to end up, take me back to my hotel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, so I know we're not born with hate, man. It's a taught behavior.
You know, it's a top behavior, and even more alarming than that, Greg. So we got black on black crime, meaning we cast shade, we don't want anyone to excel beyond us. Then we have the gun violence, where, you know, obviously growing up in Meadowview, they've had 11 shootings up and down that corridor in a short brevity of time, last several weeks. And we came up, Greg, where it was the Crips and the Bloods over the dope, and it was just, you know, going crazy. But there is no self-love. There's no value for life, right? You and I both have a good friend that committed suicide a couple years ago, Randy Veras, dear friend of ours. And I remember talking to Randy, and Randy had talked, and we were talking about Christ, and he was telling me how Christ was, you know, real in his life. And when I got the news, we were at, matter of fact, we were at your pre-golf tournament dinner.
Yeah.
And we got that news that he had committed suicide. And I thought to myself, I, as his friend, obviously may have missed or ignored the signs of him crying out for help. Didn't know he was in such a dark space and place. But I thought about that in the sense, Greg, of being our brothers and sisters keepers, right? Because you and I both know we got those in our circle of influence in our families that are in dark places right now. Absent all the justice, inequality, the COVID, they were in dark places. Anyone that doesn't have Christ is in a dark place. That's one thing that I realize, because if you don't have Christ, who is the light of the world, the only other alternative is darkness. And therefore, when I think about living what we thought was life prior to Christ, we were just existing. And all the things that we thought were fun were artificially stimulated. And they were only fun as long as we were setting the whole bar up and hooking everybody up, and we doing this and doing that. Then I thought about the young boy, the prodigal son, that had a mindset that he demanded something from his father. He goes out to a far country and lives how he wants to live with no restraint, and only to find himself in want. And that's when he had an epiphany. The Bible says, and when he came to himself, which tells me he wasn't himself when he left. And then he came back home with a sense of humility. And that's what I discern and what I hear today, Greg, as it relates to, you know, where you are in your relationship with Christ, which is outstanding. You know, it's something that, you know, as I look back over the 30 years, I never could have envisioned and anticipated us being on the same team, you know, for Christ, right? Just how we were living our lives, so to speak. The other part of the black on black crime, the casting shade, I like the fact that you said we need to pool our resources, individuals to vote. Educate them on the importance of voting, even though they say my vote doesn't matter. Well, yes, it does. Be engaged in your communities, own your communities, because what you said, Greg, as it relates to owning our own stuff, we don't own anything. Today is a day that there is a national campaign for African Americans not to purchase anything, because African Americans are consumers that purchase $1.7 trillion annually. And so today is a day that they want to do a national campaign for African Americans not to purchase anything, to show our purchasing power. The other part of that is, in order to own something, we have to create vision. We have to have funders. We have to have those angel investors that are willing to invest in these communities, to build these communities up, to demonstrate that we can do something. Just like in Tulsa, right? When President Trump wanted to have his rally on the day that, you know, Black Wall Street was decimated. You know, before segregation, before integration rather, you know, we had to have our own drinking fountain. We had to have our own restaurants. We had to have our own bathrooms. We had to have our own financing, right? We owned all the mortuaries and so forth. And so there was a point in time to where Black America was thriving.
But we were proud. We were proud. But the thing about, you said something earlier, Kevin, not to cut you off, you said humility. You have to be humble, and you have to be willing to take advice and understand that when you think you know it all and you quit learning and think you have all the answers and you don't even listen, you're a lost cause.
Yeah.
You know, so I think of us in my neighborhoods and growing up, it didn't matter if it was Mr. Lee, it didn't matter if it was Mr. Washington, or, you know, like family members, the Coles or something. Hey, the street lights is on, and get home, and yes sir, whatever. You know, now you can't even talk to anybody because they're gonna come back and light you up. You know,
Right.
it's such a bad feeling for the lack of respect we have, like you said, not only for human life, but for life in just life in general. You know, the people did not. We support in our communities. We used to support. Oak Park was a proud place.
Yeah.
And I see it coming back and reviving. My guy Alan Moore is trying to make, you know, the Heights, you know, come back. And you know, I own property and I have stuff, but man, I tell you what, the city makes it so hard for. It's almost like they try to keep you down. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's almost like
Conditional use permit. You need this permit, this permit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy how if you take our decimated areas and you want to revive them and make them better, you have people willing to have the means and willing to spend the means to bring those places back to, you know, thriving, and so those kids and people can be proud of their neighborhoods.
Right.
Man, they make you jump through more hoops and rings than I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. You know, similar to that, you're right about, so gentrification is another societal issue, right? Meaning, when you look at Oak Park, when you look at Del Paso, that is trending in that regentrification or redevelopment. If you look at the Golden One Arena in all four directions, gentrification is happening. And typically what happens is that all the utilities and the infrastructure are downtown. You remember when everybody's like, I'm moving out to Rockland throughout the suburbs. Well, it started getting more expensive. So, i.e., Golden One, we focus all of our attention down here. We start doing this redevelopment. Now the prices go up. So the persons that have predominantly lived down there in these areas are people of color that are on the lower household medians. They're predominantly the essential workers, right? So now they become priced out of their communities. CV Circle. Remember CV Circle over there by Broadway, right?
They changed the name, yeah. Our church does a lot of, yeah.
You see, all that stuff has changed, and so, you know, there's a lot of different things, and to your point of wanting to be an active participant, to buy and invest in communities, to bring those back with a sense of pride and dignity. And it's unfortunate that the politics get in the way of certain type deals, right? It's very unfortunate, but it's only in those pronounced areas that have a high concentration of people of color.
But, okay, and I'm going to throw another thing at you. I know it's a Christian-based audience or whatever, but it's, you take, 15, 16 years ago, when they started, you know, the legalization of cannabis, marijuana. They've been locking us up for years in cannabis. Mm-hmm. Whether you had a plant, 2 joints, whatever it was, we've been getting locked up. You know, so you could not have been a bad person, but if they caught you with a joint, you're going to jail.
Going to jail.
You know, 2 joints, you're going to jail. And you get a record. Now I can't get a job. I can't
do it. Right.
I can't do anything. We have 30 licenses here. Not one is a person of color.
What? And
when they said this bill was coming out, they said we would not make this a good old boys club. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to go into the names of these people that own these licenses, but some of them are some of the biggest business people you know in this city. But out of 30 licenses, you have one person from the Middle East, you have one Caucasian female, and 28 Caucasian males.
Wow. But they weren't going to make us a good old boys club.
But it wasn't going to be a good old boys club. And when you have people that have the means to try to give people jobs and get them to do it the right way, in a legal way, well, we have no license, we can't do it. So the rich get richer, and they want to grandfather everybody in. And like you said, the system is not designed for us to thrive the right way.
Right.
Unless you are unique, which we have. I think we persevere. We're strong.
Right.
You can say what you want. You can do what we want. We're going to bounce back. You're not going to keep us down. You know, I think, when someone says something to you, instead of reacting, if you react in a educational or educated way, that is more valuable than reacting how we would usually react.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's, but yeah, there are problems all over. There are problems all over. Why? But you look where the grows are, and you look where all these stuff, they put them in our neighborhoods, like the liquor stores and everything else.
Check cashing places.
They put them everywhere, man. They put them everywhere. They don't put them in.
There's only one in one industrial area out south.
But they don't put them in Granite Bay. They don't put them in El Dorado Hills. They don't put them. They got delivery places. A lot of those people in Granite Bay, El Dorado Hills, they own them.
They own them. Yeah.
But they're in our neighborhood.
So you speak to that. I mean, you think about the allegation of years ago of the crack being flooded into Watts, Compton, all that stuff, right? And so this seems to be a play out of the playbook. Put it in the marginalized communities, right? Because we don't want to look at it. Let's put it over there. Number one, you talk about the active users of the cannabis now that it's legal, right? We got many people.
I would say 75% are not people of color.
Right.
75% aren't people of color.
Wow. But the product is in these communities.
Oh, the products in the communities because the smell, the availability to get these buildings and properties at such a cost and a low rate, and they're making millions and millions and millions of dollars that go not back into the community that they're taking it from.
Correct.
And it's, it's crazy, but like I said, they're not going to make us stop. We're strong people. We're going to persevere. We're going to keep fighting. And like I said, we're not going to fight the wrong way. We're going to fight the right way. We're gonna prove them wrong. Do you educate ourselves? We're gonna educate yourself so you have control of your life. When you don't educate yourself, you have to do what they tell you to do.
Right.
Until we educate ourselves, we will always be at their mercy.
So let me ask you this. So I remember. So a couple things. This is not just a Christian audience. This is actually to kind of depict Pastor Brown in many different lights. We work with Sacramento Building Trades. We provide services for SETA as a vendor. We do a lot of different things, sober living houses, etc. And so, I wanted this show to demonstrate the versatility that a pastor is just not what you think it is. You know what I mean? Meaning, I like to play golf. Right, I like to talk junk when I'm playing.
Major junk.
Only against Nick.
And you're always late. Yeah, those 3 things. Ever since I know him, you're consistent. At least you're consistent.
At least I'm consistent. Yeah. I got to clear this up on broadcast. So, Greg and I have a mutual friend, and this guy, I thought Greg Vaughn was the best athlete in Northern California. But this guy, Nick Smyrns, his own accolades, says that he is Northern California's best athlete.
Finest athlete.
Finest athlete.
He has a T-shirt.
No.
Don't get it twisted.
Oh,
Finest
no.
athlete.
Finest athlete.
But I think, and he's not a person of color, and I don't know one person that can say one bad thing about Nick.
Yeah, Nick's a great guy.
He's a great human, a great guy, and I like I said, man, it's just sad that. But he grew up in Meadowview, South Sacramento. Like I said, there were so many people, but from the Islanders to from people from Asia, from Mexico, from all over. We were a small melting pot here in Sacramento, and everybody got along.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, everybody's at odds with each other. You know what I mean? And that's the part that crushes me.
Mm.
And like I said, we're smarter than that. We're better than that. I traded Mark 916 for life for a reason. You know what I mean? Because I was proud to be from here.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's like, man, well, you from Sacramento, man, you got to get to LA. I'm like, y'all can have LA. You can have Orange County. Nothing against anybody. You can have El Dorado Hills.
Mm-hmm.
Because I will not allow my kids or myself to think I'm better than anybody else. We might have different jobs, but I will never treat another person because of my economic background that I'm better than them.
Right.
And I'm so glad I grew up in the time that I did, because a lot of those people, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Oates, the Luchettis, there were so many different people that, like I said, part of my village, Al Bianchini,
I talked to Al the other week.
There were so many different people. Why these men have their own planes and have all their own stuff? Why would they care about me? Because if you define their character, that describes the type of person that they are. And it's unfortunate that this reality TV and stuff and things and this fake facade land it hurts, especially African American communities, because like you said, how much we spend a year on stuff that we don't own, but also it gives sense of entitlement to other people to think that they're better than us.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you I watched a full reality show. You know what I mean? I can't. I had no disrespect to those that do,
Right.
but it was just my prerogative. To me, it's a waste of time.
Well, in the Bible tells us, when we start talking about our new operating system, to abstain from those things that do not spiritually edify us, right? And that's a challenge for me. I'm not subscribing to reality shows. That's not my thing. I like the show Billions, right? That's my.
I love Billions. Ray Donovan, Billions. Yeah, Homeland. I watch all that. You know what I mean?
But what you were saying, it started my mind and thinking about this question. When I think about society, you talked about it, just so much hate. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life." When I look at evil running rampant, right? Now, evil and good don't cohabitate, right? They are at both ends of the opposite on the spectrum. When I look at society today, I see a people that don't know God, right? But also what I do see is those of us who say we know God, not fully standing on the biblical convictions.
And I have to say, I'm guilty of that.
Well, me too, but I'm talking also, I think we all are perpetrators, Greg, but when I start saying, when we start looking at evangelical churches or whatever supporting legislature and policy that clearly ostracizes and oppresses people, when we stand up and take photo ops and things of this nature, we're endorsing behavior to say that it's okay, right? And we as a church, we are supposed to be the light. Church meaning you, myself, our team that's videoing us today. We as individuals are the church, not this structure. We are the church. We are to be the hands and feet of Jesus. We are the ones that he has saved graciously and mercifully allowed us to participate in this salvation. And so if we as individuals own fully, right, our biblical convictions that ought to govern our life and be able to say, you know what, I screwed that one up, right? God, give me another chance, and realize that we're going to still keep moving forward, even though we're imperfect, we make mistakes, we own up to it, we move forward, we're growing. That's part of his formula for us. But when I look at us as a church, we are so divided. The most, number one, segregated day for us in society is on Sunday. We go to different places of worship, right? And predominantly until you had, like midtowns and some other churches that had more multiracial.
Right? I don't want to get into, I don't even want to get into that because of this whole situation, because you have different areas of Bayside, and Midtown looks like society.
Correct.
There's other places that don't feel Midtown should be part of
Correct. Right.
Bayside, and to me, if you're a pastor and you think about it, it goes back to when you said businesses. Pastors were some of the most influential people in a city because they had respect, they did the right thing, but when they start choosing a type over what's right and wrong, I lose respect for the pastor.
Yeah. And to that point, Greg, in the book of Malachi, the first chapter of Malachi, it says, God calls the Israelites into the courtroom and he indicts them. And he goes, in essence, people say, well, wherein have you loved us, God? And he's like, excuse me? And so the people were already in a place of indifference. They felt that they were going through the routines and mechanics of church. But here's where it gets dicey. In chapter 2, it says, and you, O priests, it's your fault. I grew up in an era where the pastor was greatly respected.
Yes, sir.
But something happened, Greg, where pastors wanted to be relevant, we wanted to be hip, we wanted to be down with it. And as a result, we dropped our guards, right, and started making concessions, right, to be more familiar with society, to pick from the tree of society, to make and engage in some behaviors that we knew was not consistent with what we believed. When we did that, we lose respect of those that are on the outside looking in. I know you have a neighbor, right, that you were telling me.
Yeah, we won't get into names, but when you,
right.
You got G5s and Rolls Royces, and not saying you shouldn't have things,
right.
But when I was growing up, like you said, the pastor had respect because the congregation and the city were the most important thing in his life. Well, besides the Lord.
Yeah.
But when you start having G5s and Rolls Royces, and bodyguards, and people in your congregation can't turn on your lights, there's a problem.
Right.
People can't eat, there's a problem.
Yeah. And I think this is a reckoning on all that, Greg. I think, number one, people talk about, oh, I can't wait to get back into my church. Well, when the church was open, you wasn't going anyway, if you could schedule God. But even more so, to that point, I want to say that this is a season in which we can introspectively, right? All are under the auspices of God, watchful eye, to check us. And I think this is more about us reevaluating, right? Our own spiritual relationship, first and foremost, with God. When we do come back to actual church, it's going to be different. It's not going to be what it once was because of the social distancing and things of this nature. But even more importantly, right, I would hope that we as pastors would own our part and say, you know what, let me get back to the basics, right? I don't need all the accolades and all the creature features of society. If God wants to bless me with those things, that's great. Other than that, I'm not going to capitulate my biblical convictions just to try to get this or to try to get this, right?
I know we're all guilty of that. You know what I mean? Because, like you said, we've been so departmentalized to, especially in our culture, your self-worth is the things we have.
Yeah.
Not the things we own,
Right.
things we have.
Right.
And it goes back to, I drive a Mercedes, but I might live in an apartment in the basement with, I gotta share a bathroom with someone. Because perception is everything. And like I said, and I'm not picking on, I'm happy for what anybody goes out and works and gets. And no disrespect to Eldorado Hills or Granite Bay, because I have a lot of good people and good friends that live there. But I know a lot of people who aren't who they say they are.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like I said, we're all blessed,
Yeah.
right? And Vaughn's Valley, everyone says, why do you do? We went out, served over 100,000 meals during COVID. Restore, another company I have, one opening up in August in Lomas Plaza. We gave first responders IVs and shots and stuff to try to keep them safe. To be blessed is to bless someone else.
Yeah.
And don't expect anything in return.
Yeah.
It's not to take.
Right.
It's to
Well, we live in a parasitic society. They always got their hand out, and so your good deeds, you're doing it from your heart. People are always thinking, what's your angle? Or, you understand what I'm saying?
Or they, you know what, Kev, you're absolutely right. It's what my angle is, or I'm a fraud, or you aren't who you say you are. Why? Because we broke up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We broke up, so now I'm a fraud, and I'm not who I said I am, or because I wasn't the best boyfriend, or we had an argument, so now I'm a fraud.
Right. Right.
So what happens to your circle? And the woman you date, and who's not on your team,
Yeah.
you gotta go.
It's interesting you talked about how you have a different circle of friends now. And, good, bad, or indifferent, but they've been there with you. And sometimes it's difficult to, cut folks loose, right? Especially, I had some lifelong friends that finally, I had to realize that, I'm trying to live this God life, right? And my relationship and friendship over here is counterproductive. I love you, right? But if you're my friend, you're going to respect the pathway that I'm on. You know who did that for me in '95? I went back, Greg. Signed with Kansas City after sitting out. I'm down there in Baseball City, not too far from Tampa. Chef, oh yeah, man, we'll come up there and pick you up, right? So I'm waiting on Chef. I'm like, man, Chef, what is? Don't pick up. So when I go down to his wedding, he says, Brownie, he says, man, he says, I know you was trying to do the church thing, and the reason I didn't come pick you up is because I knew you was trying to do the church thing, and I didn't want to expose you, right? But I appreciated that.
But you know what? And that says a lot, because even the guys we knew in Meadowview that weren't doing the right thing, those same guys, hey, this is going on over here, man, you got a chance. Don't come with us. Go this way. Mm-hmm. But like I said, man, I still have my same childhood friends. I mean, they still are my circle. I might not see them as much as I used to, but I shouldn't say that. I do see them just as much. But they will call me on anything as if I was still at Airport Little League. They will tell me when I'm stepping out of place. They will tell me when I'm wrong. But what I have added is more Christian men. And, the thing that gets to me is, I keep referring back to people that I've dated or went out with. I don't want to say married to, but, it's all facade, you're fake, this and that. How come every argument you have to, one thing I can't stand, I can take accountability. Mm-hmm. And I can say I'm sorry. And I can say ever since being single, there's a lot of women that can't say I'm sorry or take any accountability. Right. You know what I mean? So it's different, and it's in a different, we live in a different era, man. I don't know. You know what I mean? And maybe you have to have, like you said, you got to find your church. You got to find someone that believes and lives in Christ is their Savior. In Christ, they wake up and they're thankful, and the stuff that comes out of their mouth, which I have to consistently work on, is more Christ-like.
Mm-hmm. You know, the when I met my wife, I wasn't ready for my wife prior to coming to Christ.
No, you weren't.
Thank you. I wasn't ready for marriage, right? I was engaged 4 times, right? And I wasn't serious about getting married. I was just to shut, them up, and I'm sorry, right? I'm trying to make it to heaven. Pastor wasn't always a pastor, right? But I look back, Greg, and I thank God that He didn't allow me to walk down that pathway knowing I wasn't ready, right? Not saying that you weren't ready, when you got married to Michelle, but I can only speak for me that when He became real to me and He was my primary focus, I met my wife at a wedding. I flew home to be in one of our old teammates' wedding, and she and I walked with each other, and I was just talking about the Lord. I didn't know she was going through divorce at the time, and it just so happened that a year or so after the wedding, we got reacquainted, but it was because of where I was inwardly, right? And so I'll say this as you are still single, right? Just wait on the Lord, right? Because He has whoever He wants for you. But first and foremost, I think about Matthew 6:33. And He says, seek ye first the kingdom of God.
Yeah, right.
And when we seek Him first and foremost, and He can occupy and have preeminence in our life, He promised to add all these other things for us.
But we're so used to being in control.
Right.
First, it goes back to surrendering and submitting
right.
and trusting Him. And then He will put and whoever He wants in our life. It brings us back to, I was on a fly fishing trip,
What you fly? Man, you a city slicker. What you know about fly fishing,
I love
man?
fishing, man.
What you know? I'm from the country.
But I was up and ready, and I was me, one of my business partners and best friends, Mitsu Miyagi.
Mitsu, yeah.
It was Brian Bullard, who is not a person of color. That's a great, great guy. Great, great guy. Married a South Side girl, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Taro.
Okay.
And Taro grew up in the church. He's a man of God. And
love Taro.
One of my best friends, and holds you accountable. And we're eating, man. And like I said, I'm still going through is being a Christian full-time fun. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And Taro, his father, and Mr. Wright, is a pastor and all these things. Charles says, I can't wait to get to heaven. I was like, man, at that time, I just had a birthday, but at that time, I think we're about 42, 43.
Right.
And I'm like, you can't wait? And I was like, he goes, no, man, it's so perfect. There's nothing bad up there. I can't. I mean, he was so excited that once he explained it to me, I knew I better get on the same page. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I knew I better get on the same page. Until this day, from Philos to Taro, and I have, my Aunt Maisha, my Uncle Paul, my mother. But when it comes from your parents, it's a little bit different. Just like my kids went to Bradshaw Christian, then Jesuit, St. Francis. Yeah, we had church every day. We got to go to church on Sunday too. And I didn't force them to, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which I should have, because that should have been the most important thing that we did as a father, as a family. But my disappointment, and I can say I'm sorry to my kids, is I didn't lead by example. That old adage that, do as I do, not as I say. Yeah. Say as I do, not as I do.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
It is I didn't give them a good example as far as developing the relationship with the Lord. And as I get older, and I still struggle and go through my ups and downs, sometimes they'll get mad. Oh, Dad, you just think you're perfect because you go to church. No, I said I go to church because I'm not perfect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I need to work on my relationship. I need to develop myself more God-like.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, Greg. It's we talk about going to church. Going to church can be a mechanical response.
So church doesn't make you a Christian.
Correct, right? And so it's about relationship. And now, we say happy belated birthday, 55.
Well, why did you have to put that on camera?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, I was supposed to use another. Hey, I'm 54, right behind you. But I was just thinking, right? Derek Lee passed a few weeks back.
I got a few calls. Not my little brother, like who I call Derek Lee went to El Camino and the Cubs. And
Yeah,
all that.
Big D.
Big D, Sac High.
Yeah.
Sac High, who was probably one of the best athletes out of Sacramento and that I've ever seen. You were talking about other people's, Ernest Lee, KJ was my year and a good friend, former mayor KJ. But I know Bill Cartwright, who was probably, they say, the best basketball player out of Sacramento. I'm telling you, Ernest Lee.
Well, I heard stories about Ernest.
He lived behind me. I mean, he packed them in. But then, like I said, you have the Rogers brothers out there in the Heights. You had so many, Eric Barrow, there were so many.
But why is it, Greg, that we were always just athletes, right? Right? That was our way out the.
Because I believe we were thinking with just one side of our brain. And that's why I'm so proud of, the LeBrons, the Chris Pauls, and Shaq.
Yeah.
And all those guys, because there's, you go to Damon Dash, you go to Jay-Z, you people, P. Diddy, we're starting to own our brand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is you want to do, why not own it?
Right.
And so that's why not collaborate, us as people of color, as athletes and businessmen, and come together and get buildings and own shops and doing different things. With the MLS team coming to SAC, there's 3 or 4 of us that went in on that, people of color,
Mm-hmm.
It's like a dream come true, but working together, we can go farther than working solo.
Right. Interesting enough, so I remember Mayor Johnson had that thing called Indivisible years ago, where he was trying to aggregate a bunch of affluent people of color to come together and start doing something that you mentioned. And you're right, Greg, if you thought about the magnitude of all the black athletes, whether it be NFL, NBA, MLB.
Let's say businessmen too, because we don't want to isolate our kids to just being athletes.
Correct.
They can be doctors, they can be lawyers, they can be tech people.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I think we have to start adjusting to the times, because all of us aren't going to be athletes.
Right.
We might be great in high school, Little League, Division II,
Right.
Division I, minor leagues, semi-pro, but you still can make a difference. But all of us aren't going to make it to that level.
Right.
So we have to be prepared, and I'm going to go back again and be educated enough to use this
Right.
to prosper and to still be able to continually grow.
Mm-hmm.
Marvin Brookins out there in the Heights, brother to brother.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with Brooke my whole life. Like I said, Alan Warren, they're trying to make a difference in people's lives in their neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They are trying to make a difference and help people. And that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
But also, when we help somebody, or as when you came up, Kevin, let me go take you to get some suits, and let me go do, that's, we looked after one another.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew you were going to do that for somebody else.
Right.
And that's the thing that we need to come together, but we also need to lead by example. We need to be able to demonstrate restraint and not react the way they want us to react,
Right.
because it always goes back to proving them wrong.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people out there that will push your buttons and are trying to make you do something wrong so they can put the blemish on your record or your career or whatever it is because something went wrong between you and them, or they can't handle you having success.
Right, right.
Or they're disappointed, I found, more times than not, in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of taking accountability with themselves, they have to find a way to bring you down.
Well, because your success brings and casts light on their being below average, right? Or what they don't have or whatever.
Well, but you can take relationships, like you said. You can take, and I always go back, because like I said, my friends, I have my friends.
My boy Ricky.
Yeah, but people that I grew up with, my true friends, do you know, they have never asked me for anything. The guys I grew up with from 7 all the way up, my true friends have never asked me for a dime.
Wow.
When we go to eat, they pay, I pay. It's just, it trades off. They have never asked me for a dime. Most of the times I'm talking about is, for me, and I can only speak on my half, is I value myself, and part of my testimony is on relationships. Mm-hmm. It wasn't baseball, it wasn't being successful, it was how many women or what women thought of me, or what, that was my weakness was solely based on, the notches. And, if the more women, the better I was as a human being.
Right.
And even when you were trying to be good, they, like I said, and there's no, subpar or not par, it was, they tried to do things to make you react so they can put a blemish on your record. And unfortunately, a lot of times we don't walk away, we don't do things the right way, we engage, and the next thing you know, they win.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about, you said something very insightful, and I think a lot of people, we did pride ourselves on notches, right? Because maybe our self-worth or our that's how we were low self-esteem.
Yeah, it made us feel better about us. Right. It made us feel more important about ourselves. Mm-hmm. The more women we could, that's not necessarily like or fall in love with, but get interested in us.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's, like I said, I learned so much in men's group that, and I'm still learning, that if you go back and think about it, and I'm not knocking all people of color, but how many males of color did you see do the right thing?
I mean, everybody always had a side, right? Side piece, right?
Or a side family, or side, right. But they took care of home and they did these other things. So we still know what's right from wrong, and I still made the wrong choices. So
the only one. Booker James says, "Him that knows right and do it not, to him it is a sin." And it's not that we didn't know what was right, but Greg, again, our notches and pursuit for women didn't start with us. It started with Adam, right?
Yeah. Don't let him.
Right. Then Samson, right?
Yeah.
And so I understand, but where we got challenged was in finding that one, right? Opposed to having to have the whole box of seeds candy, right? I mean, one piece of chocolate is good, right? Or maybe I better eat another piece, right? And so forth. And so I hear you with regard to the constraint. And I, for all intents and purposes, I couldn't do it by myself. God had to help me, man.
You know what's funny? You say that because I know people that are influential in the church that say, when they told me I was normal, mm-hmm. then now I'm able to grow a little bit more, because they said, I have those same struggles. Mm-hmm. And you're a pastor and you look happy, and man, me and my wife have arguments, mm-hmm. But this is how we get through them. I make sure I have my armor on now.
Yeah.
And I make sure I'm going to be with somebody not like me and you together we used to be.
Right.
I'm gonna have someone to say, "Hey, man, what are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, Kev, I really didn't. I never wanted to hurt people, but the more I did it, until I came to Christ, I didn't know how many people I really did mislead and hurt by doing the things that I was doing.
Right.
You know, so for me, it was, and not just women, but misleading them, lying to them. That's what you can accuse me of, but not to being false or being fake or being not a good person or a heart or do I give to kids? Do I help? Yeah, but my shortcoming was women. My shortcoming, and it's something that I have to address and deal with every single day. But I know if I start with my daily devotional, getting the word, I have a better chance of
being victorious in that day.
That day, and take it one day at a time instead of trying to win a season.
Right. Greg, just listening to all the parts of this conversation and things of this nature, and just listening to how your life has come full circle, how you have given your servanthood the same attention that you have given your professional career. As far as getting the extra BP, as far as getting in shape. Now you've taken those capacity developers that you developed playing baseball. Now God appears to be using them now in kingdom building and goodwill and benevolence, as you talked about. I know you started your foundation. I remember playing in your first celebrity golf tournament that was for type 1 diabetes. I didn't know that your oldest son, Corey, had the diabetes until that level of awareness, and that kicked off into some other endeavors and so forth. And so, can you kind of tell us, some of the things that you mentioned earlier in the conversation, the meals that you did for the at-risk during the COVID, the essential workers, the police, the fire departments that you were doing things for. Are there any other elements that you're doing out there in the community?
Oh yeah, like I said, I have business partners that we're trying to build up neighborhoods. You know what I mean? We're trying to come together and get neighborhoods built up that are suppressed and down. Also, working and mentoring. I never stopped ever since playing baseball with kids about it's okay to be smart, because I always ask. Going back to that conversation about the mentorship, when I would go to schools and have a 1.0 or 0.8, 1.88, I'm like, if this meant being cool, I definitely did not want to be cool.
Right.
And we have to start taking back control of our families and our homes to prepare our children and give them a chance.
Right.
Because if we don't lead, and if we don't give them structure, who's going to do it?
Right. We want, well, who's going to do it. They're going to do it amongst themselves and police themselves. And how does that work out?
So we're going to be seeing them in institutions, basically.
Right.
Or going to funerals. So for me, I think one thing that I'm excited about is, like I said, owning a part of a major league team that's coming to your hometown, having a piece of that. I have Restore Crowd. Some of the stuff that pro athletes get are now going to be able to get back to the public. Health and beauty. From IVs to B12 and vitamin deficiencies that a person has, will be able to help make their life better.
Right.
Plus, we'll be able to have the crowd, the machines for the extreme athlete that's out there beating his body up. I sat in the cold pool ever since the University of Miami, and now I can sit in the crowd machine for 3 minutes and be done, opposed to 15 minutes of 38-degree water with booties on my feet and all this other stuff. Now we're going to basically bring the locker room to the public.
Okay.
And hopefully, I have another dream to expand on that so we can get it to the high schoolers. And And also, at the same time, while you're doing that, you're also being able to introduce them to Christ. You're also being able to mentor them a little bit. It's just another avenue to be able to interact with these kids. For me, I started Bright Star Christian. It's still my baby. I love coaching it. You came and helped, and I want to say thank you again for helping with our pictures and stuff. But I think it's time to change. And someone asked me today. They said, all these monuments that are coming down. Someone said to me today, all these monuments are coming down. Are you bothered by that? And I know some people. Once again, I'll probably lose some more friends when I say, until they put all the monuments up,
Right.
I'm okay with it. Until they put, whether it's Jewish, Chinese, Japanese, African American, until Hispanic, until they put all the monuments up, I don't have a problem with it.
Right.
Because to me, you're saying it's okay to worship and embellish these guys, but this isn't what America was about.
Right. Right.
And
especially when you look at the backstory to the vast majority of those monuments, right?
Yeah. Look how those monuments became monuments.
Right. Do you find it hard, Greg? Sometimes I know we have friends that don't look like us, and to talk about some of the racial divides of society. I mean, you talk about owning your own things. I had one of my MC3 construction classes we have a segment in our construction history that was rewritten because initially the 187-page documentation for construction history did not include black people. They stripped that, came back, re-edited, owned some stuff that says, you know what, the union construction, unfortunately has been a institution that has discriminated against, right? For all these years, but the last 25 years, we're trying to get better. We're trying to create a space of neutrality to say that everyone is welcome, just have a strong work ethic, yada, yada, yada.
Why does it take 25 years?
Exactly, right, exactly, right, exactly. And so, to that point, when I start looking at having these conversations, initially, as the director over the pre-apprenticeship for all 32 union trades over these 9 counties, we have the buildings, all the construction going on. So my role is to recruit and train individuals that meet the zip code specificities along with the impediment, public assistance, veterans, women, justice involved, emancipated youth. Well, predominantly those individuals are going to look like me. And so when I started bringing individuals in, unfortunately, it was suggested that maybe I've gone to the other end of the spectrum, that I'm overcorrecting a broken system. But when I crunched the numbers, in this locality, there's 2,803 apprentices, of which 1,295 are Caucasian, another 1,095 are Hispanic, 307 are African American. And so there's a 4-to-1 gap. And so when you start, saying and suggesting that I'm overcorrecting, the truth of the matter is that as we start to engage and have this conversation with objective data, there are those that don't look like me that are my friends that will still resist the objective truth. And the truth is that there is a vast majority discrepancy. When you look at the state of California, the household that a Caucasian makes versus a person of color, there's an 80 to 20% income gap, right? Disparity in the state of California. So when you start saying we need to own our own things, there was a time where we had our inventions stolen from us. We've had all these things taken from us. And so, even when we did own our own Wall Street, some people got upset and went down to Tulsa and burned it up, right? And so there's this unrest from a historical, objective data of factual things that have happened. And so as we sit here in 2020 and you say, I can't believe these things are happening, it breaks my heart, it breaks my heart. My youngest son works for Tiger Construction, and his generation, they say, I ain't waiting 25 years, man. He got his bachelor's, right? his nephew, his cousin, got his master's, right? He, assistant athletic director at UC Davis. These guys are saying, you know what? We ain't waiting 25 more years. We want what we want right now.
And that's a beautiful thing because we need them to go out and influence more people to not wait 25 years.
Are we going to support them? Are we going to back them? Are we going to be there on their side to support them as they go up and down, right? Because they're going to need old people like us to support them as they go out there and champion, right? And continue. I mean, we may not agree with all the antics, right? I don't agree with them burning up buildings and all these things, right? However, I can't tell someone how they negotiate and
Change.
negotiate change or to deal with their pain.
Yeah, you know what, and that, because I don't want people to think I'm an advocate of people destroying other people's property. Yeah. You know, because then that makes me no better than the people that have discriminated against me.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Let's attack them and break them down with our mind. And the thing that I'm so grateful for and have high, I don't want to say, you know, it's not hope, but what I'm seeing is,
You're optimistic.
yes,
Is this going to be different?
I'm very optimistic that even I hear people in the other, I'm independent. I vote on issues. I don't vote just because I'm a Democrat, I'm going to be a Democrat, or I wasn't going to be a Republican because of my financial, you know, tax saving dollars. You know what I mean?
I like a dummy. I registered for Republican years ago.
Yeah.
My wife would never let me forget
See?
because of taxation, right?
Yeah, but see, for me,
No longer
right,
Republican.
for me, right, you know, like I try to tell kids, right is right, wrong is wrong.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna vote on the issues as I see them.
Mm.
Because that flag, once again, everyone has the right to feel and vote how they want to. But what I'm seeing in these demonstrations is millennials and some Generation X kids that don't feel the same way that their grandparents and their parents and their forefathers felt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing just as many people of non-color out there fighting for what we want. And what people have to understand is, and I keep going back to Kaepernick taking a knee, we don't want to be given anything.
Right.
We're not asking to be treated special. We're just asking for equality.
Right.
You put your pants on like I do, how come we can't be equal? Why does the color of my skin make me, you know, I have to bow down to you? Those days are over. We're not bowing down.
Right.
And we're gonna fight, and hopefully we fight with our minds, because like I said, once again, I can't tell a person how to feel. I can't tell another person what to do, but hopefully we start fighting with our minds. And I read something. African American women are graduating from college institutions at 93.5% and going to corporate America. African American men, which we are graduating at 8% going to corporate America. So, not that I disagree with the challenges we have and being oppressed as far as the education system and at the household, but we have to take control and start breaking the cycle. If we have a kid, we have to break the cycle. We have to start educating ourselves. We have to do a better job preparing our kids for this type of world instead of going in and saying, you owe me something.
Right. You know, James Brown said, I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door and I get it myself.
That's all I ever asked for. And that's all you give us the same opportunity you're going to give someone else. You know, two things I like to address, but I know you said in closing. Like I said, I lost a lot of friends and a couple were girls that I dated, a couple were people that I thought were close to me. You know, well, I get what you're saying, that's not the time. I'm like, we're still waiting on a phone call. They still ain't called us to have a talk.
Right.
They still have not called us to have a talk. I said, picture this. You have all daughters. They can't do this. They can't get this job. They won't even be looked at for this job. They don't have a say. They basically are non-existent in your world and your culture. And that's the closest thing you can come to feeling how our whole race feels.
Right.
Because we're accepted as long as we make it.
As long as we make it, right.
And whatever make it is.
Right. Based upon their society.
Yeah. Whatever make it means, we're accepted. And two, don't ever tell me you understand what I mean, because you do not have to have the same conversations. I have 2 boys and a grandson. And I heard a man say the other day, everybody is doing something wrong that this is happening to. There's a lot of people of non-color that are doing things wrong that same things are happening to.
Correct.
But I have to tell my sons, hey, if you get pulled over, and this is no disrespect to the police department, like I said, Chief Hahn's a good friend. A lot of my friends are, they are policemen or sheriff, and I want to say thank you for what you do. But it is different. They look at our skin color, and I have to have these talks to my kids and tell them, call 911 if you're in a desolate area, put your flashers on, keep the phone on with the dispatcher, let them know you're not running. You're not, but I'm not getting pulled over on a frontage road on the river.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be, all of a sudden the body cam goes off and I don't know what happened. No, when we left, he was fine.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I thank Chief Hahn and I thank all the policemen around the world and the country that are trying to make this a better place. And these governors and mayors that are saying enough's enough.
Right.
You know, if you've been suspended 18 times and you still have a job out there with a gun,
yeah, something's wrong.
The policy is broken.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care what type of union you have. You should be ashamed for putting that person out there to take someone else's life.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Especially when it's well documented. You know, too, when Michael Brown was killed, I was in Pico National. So they flew, myself and Pastor Les Simmons flew back there with Ashley Malouf, who was the executive director, 2 days after Michael was killed. And I will tell you, Greg, that was an experience for me. It was in St. Louis in the summer, so you already know what it's like playing on the turf there, right? And just being in that climate. But to feel the humidity, the weight of the humidity plus the tension,
yeah.
Listen, there were people that looked like me that I was afraid of in that. I mean, we marching. I mean, listen, the police department brought out the doggone tanks, man. They got these EM-50 urban assault vehicles, right? And we just doing a peaceful protest. And looky here, man, they start shooting pellets and pepper spray and all this stuff, right? But, you know, we met with Attorney General Holder came down. He met with 50 of us, right? And, you know, we were talking about things in the community, but the point that I want to make behind that is that when we looked at all the elected city officials, not one of them was a person of color. Of the 52 police officers in Ferguson, there was only 2 that were people of color.
And you think how they felt, what they had to go through just to keep their job.
They just elected the first black mayor last month, right? And so what I'm saying is that Ferguson had a minority majority people of color that did not exercise their vote.
So how do we fix it? That's what you just said. We have to vote. If you want change, them people, that Kaepernick, go back to Kaepernick, he was kneeling for you to have the right to vote. Yeah. If you want change, vote.
Rosa Parks, Martin Luther. I mean, you think about the lives of people that they sacrificed their lives so that we could have the right to vote.
To vote.
A basic right of a citizen of the United States is to be able to vote. Now we see them using these tactics to suppress the vote.
Yeah, you know what? We're gonna make sure you wait in the line of 9 hours before you go in.
And it's COVID,
Mm.
right? In a COVID season, right? And
Yeah, but
all
you know,
the tactics.
but like I said, man, we're strong, we persevere. We were beat, we were raped, we were all these things. If we can overcome that, we can overcome this. And I'm talking about to make America a better place. Make it a fair, it will never be fair, but make it a place where we have the ample opportunity to better ourselves.
So would it be fair to say this, Greg, that this nation that was founded on biblical and Christian values did not adhere to any of those values when they came and took a land, took a country, took a land, where you already had people that was living here? I'm just saying, when you start looking at the sins of a nation, you know, God says, be not, right, mocked. God won't be mocked. And so to that point of reckoning, I think even from a societal and nation standpoint, that there's a day of reckoning, that there are consequences. This country was founded by displacing people, indigenous people, massacring people. Basically, like your boy on Friday, Debo, he gonna come take your bike. What you gonna do about it?
No consequences.
Right? And so now, right, this is America, right? But yet, right, until everyone under the auspice of this flag are treated equal. Right?
Give them the same opportunity. Like I said, we're not asking for anything free.
Right.
You know what I mean? But us as being African American, people of color, we have to do better also.
We do.
We need to do better also and start proving people wrong instead of people right. You know what I mean?
We always fall back to the narrative to reinforce these mindsets that people have against us.
And we have to, and that's the part I was talking about, Kevin. We were educated at an early age at home.
Yeah.
That if you want to be different and you want a better life, these are things you have to do.
Right.
They didn't say all the obstacles were going to be gone.
Right.
You just better do them better than everybody else. Separate yourself.
Right.
And you can have a chance. But the hate and the tension and everyone being so separate, man, like I said, I don't know who my friend is and who my friends are now. I used to think we were friends, but the stuff that's coming out of your mouth and the stuff that you're saying.
You know, the Bible says, so a man thinketh, so is he. And the unfortunate thing, Greg, that I've discovered is that whatever is in an individual will always come out. And we live in a time and season where it's important that we do not dismiss the great illumination that God is casting on these behaviors, on these conversations, right? Because he's actually pulling the curtain back and allowing us to see some that we thought were our friends, right? I'm certain that there have been people, Greg, with the ministry here that may have, transitioned to different places, right? Because, one of the reasons that I want to say that we birthed Journey was because Journey is not about a mechanical church. It's about relationship. We have strong outreach in many different areas, from justice involvement to sober living houses to workforce solutions to the homeless to all these various different things. These are things that are very much a part of who we are at Journey. But we are held and governed by the Word of God. That governs our life. Now, that's how we reconcile our indifferences. It's just about what God's Word says. When you mentioned voting, or is there anything that you're doing? I saw LeBron and some other players have come together to do something to get the vote out. They're out there. Is there anything that you're doing here locally?
And all these things that they're doing right now, we need to get out and put the right candidates in place. Mm-hmm. And the only way we can do is vote. But they're trying, like you said, they're keeping oppression alive by saying, oh, I'm sorry, these systems don't work. They're taking slow.
But let me ask you this while you mentioned that, Greg. So when you look at candidates, for far too long, we have been beholden to a system that only gave us certain selections. We don't have a reservoir of black people that are running for elected office.
You know, we don't, but we do. But you're going to have to go to the other gender, which is female.
We go get them where they at.
So in the world, I know how they're going to feel. They're socialists. They're not going to feel that they're ready for a female, period, but one of color.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, man, for me, put somebody in there that's going to do the right thing. Lead us by bringing people together and making us the best country that we could possibly be,
Right.
and fighting for the rights of all people. That's what. If you're going to talk about the flag, talk about everything about the flag. You know when they say it's disrespectful to kneel on that flag? Do you know it's disrespectful to turn the flag sideways like you do on football and basketball games?
Right.
Talk about that.
Right.
They don't talk about that.
Right.
That's disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
The flag was never meant to be sideways.
Right.
Unless you were folding it and give it to someone that has passed.
Mm-hmm.
Or you were taking it down and folding it up to be raised again for the next day. But they talk about disrespect. Like I said, man, the whole plan and the people I were communicating with, some present and some past, was the distraction.
Yeah.
But when you have two Army Rangers, Navy SEAL, with their hand on this man while he's there kneeling, and they told him to kneel, and the people still, they don't want to see it. Because this conversation they don't want to have. And you know what? I hear a lot of people, like I said, man, I've dated people that think they're better than us, but also just, you know, economic background. Oh, you can't do what I can do. You don't deserve to be here. You know what? It's a free country, man. I go where I want to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and people, instead of encourage people to be better, they try to keep you down and put you down.
Right.
So I was gonna put this on, and this one is my foundation, and it's like, and for more so for here in Sacramento, you know, Vaughn's Valley, and I want to say thank you for everything you do. It's helping me. We called off our golf tournament this year,
Okay.
just because for we felt it was more important for people to be safe.
Yeah.
Especially, and we don't have the resources, or that we're not being educated enough. And we don't have the homes to have the social distancing. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. We
So
on top of each other.
we on
Right.
top of each other. So, with that being said, you know, we're trying to pass out masks and get information out, but also there are other issues at stake that are far more important than us talking about a golf tournament.
Yeah.
We all need to be involved. We know we need to be out there in the movement in a non-violent, positive way. Trying to create change. So Vaughn's Valley, we called it off, but for Sacramento, this is who I am. Why'd you leave La Jolla? Because this is where I'm from. This is where I'm going to make a difference. So if you notice the trademarks, you know, not just the Vaughn's Valley Foundation, but the 916 for life on the bottom of it, you know what I mean? That's who I am.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, it's Vaughn's Valley, but I'm 916 for life.
916.
916 for life.
Oh,
And I won't quit. I won't stop until we can make this the best place that we can.
Sacramento can be a beacon light for the rest of the state of California.
Yeah, don't follow, lead.
Right, lead.
Lead. Oakland, California has been leading for years.
Yeah.
Every protest goes through Oakland. You know what I mean? So they have fought for some of the most important things for us. Why can't Sacramento? We're the capital.
Right.
We're the capital. So, with that being said, let's leave here and make this a better place, and let everybody else follow us.
Be the head, not the tail.
Be the head, not the tail. Just like they say, when we was coming up, if you the tail, you ain't gonna get a shot.
You ain't gonna get a shot. You know, we are certainly grateful, Mr. Greg Vaughn, being able to come in and just have fellowship with us and share so many and touch on so many important topics, and, you know, let us know here at Journey Ministries what we can do to collaborate and come alongside. Like I said, you're going out to do mass. We love to, you know, mobilize the folks as much as
PPE,
possible. PPE,
you know,
those
PPE,
things, right? We
hand
had
sanitizer. You know, we're trying to get these things out. And here I am, African American. I don't care what color you are. If you need it, you need it.
right.
And you know, that's how we have to start thinking as a whole.
Our vision and purpose, our mission says this: that all humanity has redemptive value, and that's how we treat
Amen.
it.
Amen.
All humanity has redemptive
Amen.
value.
But you know, I sort of get uncomfortable because you're making it sound like I was too good of a person. I still have my inner demons and my inner struggles that I battle every single day. And I just try to take one day at a time to be the best person and build my relationship with the Lord. But like I said,
Well, I get the bell in here to come give you the other side.
I'm still a train wreck. You know, I'm just trying to get better. You know, and be the best person I can be. And I just get a little uncomfortable. You know, from the compliments. I don't want people to think that I'm different than them. I'm no different. I have the same struggles, the inner fights that they have with a lot of things. You know, and I just had to say that because I don't want people to say, I see Greg portray himself as this, and this. No, Greg is still Greg. Greg might drink too much wine. You know, Greg might say some things he shouldn't say. Greg might do things that aren't godlike. But I'm working on myself. And if you want to judge me, that's on you. But I know when it comes time, you know, I got to answer
want to hear.
Yeah,
say, "Servant, well done." Right?
Yeah. That's all I want to hear. And I had to say that not just to say sorry and to let people know that I'm not trying to be something that I'm not, but I had to say that for me to be able to move on also.
Amen. Amen. You know, we certainly appreciate your transparency because, you know, again, I think all of us, Greg, when you start looking at life and you look at it in various different seasons, we all were something at one point. And to that point, there are sometimes those struggles. I talked about Paul having a thorn in his flesh. We don't know what that thorn was, but we do know that thorn caused him to be dependent on God, where he had to go seek him out in prayer. And you know what he told him after the third time? He says, "My grace is sufficient." God knows your struggles. He knows my struggles. And if we have a genuine, authentic heart that really wants to please him, he's going to wipe those things away.
No, I know
He's
he
got to
is.
stay the course.
I know he's the only manual that's for real, true. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 40 years. I remember we had this sign at Sac City: 2 years to play, 40 years to remember. And then I don't know which one of the alumni said, "Hey Jerry, so you mean we're gonna die after we're 40 years away from here?" You know, so I think they changed it. You know, but you know, I thought about all those things leading up to the discussion today. I don't call it an interview because this is family. We go way back.
We are family.
And we certainly appreciate you coming and stopping by and being our guest today. And with your guest, we want to make sure you got some love, some keepsakes. You got your Journey mask there. All righty then. You got your dry fit Journey logo. Got your MLB, baby. Look at that. Got your MLB, Journey. Come on, baby.
Yeah, I like
Got your hood. You got him all swagged up.
Got me swagged up.
Yeah.
I gotta talk to Jerry Manuel now because he keeps me swagged up too.
Jerry keep you swag.
Jerry Manuel's another great man.
Yeah, we play JMF every year. I make sure, you know, I coach at the Indercombe High School, and I make certain that I keep Florin High School, JMF, Burbank on the roster,
On the schedule,
on the schedule, so we can play, because I want to make certain that we come together.
Yeah, you know,
Right,
and
that's important.
I want to say thank you to you guys for what you're doing. You know, because like I said, you don't get the press. You're not looking for the press. But you guys are making a difference in people's lives and in our community. And it takes, like I said, I don't know why that village left. You know what I mean? But it takes a village
It does.
to make a difference.
There is hope, like you said, with these millennials and with the Generation X, Greg, and maybe we're supposed to be the valets and caddies for these younger people, right? To be the sound mind according to the book of Joel, where the young people would dream dreams and we as old people would come alongside and support them.
But you know what though? I think we got lost a little bit during our time as parents because
Yeah.
because we wanted to be their friends.
Yeah.
And you got to be a parent, and then you can be their friend.
Mhm.
And so I remember, man, hey, you say the wrong thing, anything can come from anywhere. You could have your hand on the swivel,
Right.
and that's just the way it was. But it was respect.
It was respect.
Yeah, but now, it's,
Is it because I grew up, I didn't want my kids to be treated the way I was? Like we grew up so bad. Because, I remember I was 12 years old. We jumped in my mother's Buick Skylark. And mom and dad had been divorced for years, got divorced when I was in first grade. So she, mama and dad. So we get ready to go somewhere. I get out to the car and I sit in the seat. She says something and I start mumbling under my breath. She said, "What did you say?" And I mumbled again before I could even get it out. Mama caught me, right?
Yeah, and it's sad because we do have people that are sick and take it too far,
Mm-hmm.
but we lost the sense of discipline
Yeah.
and a sense of authority. And if you don't have respect and authority and direction at home, you have no chance, or I should say no chance. You have a very slim chance of being productive in society.
Yeah.
Because if you don't respect the people that love you the most,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to respect anybody else.
It does start at home.
It starts at home.
Yeah.
They said, "Who's your heroes?" My mama was my hero.
Yeah.
My mom was my hero. I had sports heroes. I had, Martin Luther King was a hero. Jackie Robinson was a hero.
Mm-hmm.
Walter Payton. I had those type of heroes.
Yeah.
But
Mama was your go-to.
My mama was my hero, and my grandmother was my hero.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And those are, my mother's my hero. She raised three of us. My brother ended up, he's a professor at Columbia. My sister works for a law firm. Mom did a phenomenal job. And
But why? Because she pushed you, right?
She pushed me.
See, that's what happens.
She's still pushing me.
I'm
I'm 54, 3. How old am I? 54.
Yeah, I'm 54. 53, yeah.
Yeah.
But even my coaches, from Jerry Weinstein, Paul Carmazzi, Coach Moak, Norm Reddy, all those guys, Lester Robinson. I said, man, I think they hate me, because they're always on me. They said, when I stop talking to you, then you know we got a problem.
Yeah. Isn't that something? I used to think about some of the little coaches like they didn't like me, but it was something that they saw in me.
They did.
And they did.
You brought a lot on yourself, though.
Yeah, I did. Hey, with all that being said, we again thank you for tuning in for On the Mound with Pastor Brown. And again, please share this video. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Greg Vaughn, thank you once again for coming and sharing your story with us, sitting down and have fellowship. We say happy belated birthday to you as well. And we got some keepsakes up here, as we said. And we got this baseball card. Who is it? That's me.
No.
Hey, I remember that, G. It was the day after. Look at G. What you doing, man?
It was hot.
It was hot.
I had hair.
You had hair, and I remember you guys had taken me out the night before this to my birthday spring training.
I don't remember that.
And got the BP, and I didn't feel too good. But anyway, that was a whole nother life. We thank God for transformation and for progress, not perfection. Again, thank you for tuning in on the Mound with Pastor Brown. Deuces, peace, hasta noche, ribadirty. Stay safe. God bless you.